people always draw houses and they always draw penises. Isn't it funny that they always draw colonial houses and circumcised penises? And it's like, that's always stuck with me because like nobody ever draws a different type of house. No one's like, oh, it's a split level. And nobody ever draws like a penis with a foreskin. Like,
that's why Joe started his All the Dicks initiative, where he's inspiring young children to draw all different types of dicks.
draw your own dick, whatever it may look like. Don't say children in that. That's not good now. I don't like that at all. Fuck. That was like a delayed reaction where I was like, oh, come on, man. Don't cut this the wrong way.
Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, the show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just the first televised episode, and forgetting anything we might know about the future run of that show, rate it and decide if it's a show we want to greenlight or cancel. This week we're going to be talking about Mythic Quest. Mythic Quest has gone 30 episodes over 3 seasons on Apple TV. Today we're talking about episode 1, which was called Pilot, originally airing February 7th, 2020. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me as always, the boys, most of them at least, Nick, Ferg, and Joe. No Gordo this week. What's going on, guys?
Heyo.
Yo. If I wanted to dig holes all day, I'd fire my gardener.
That's not the one I thought you'd go with.
I have so many of them, but I think that Pootie Shoe is maybe the worst villain of any show we've ever covered. So I wanted to give him some
It's also the
quote.
weirdest sentence you've ever said.
Every time I talked about it, I was like, this Pootie Tang kid. And I was like, God damn it, I keep saying Pootie Tang.
Pootie done did it again!
Get that Pootie.
Knowing Gordo can't be here for this episode and some of the things that were said and done, this is really not the episode for him to pick.
Gordo always seems to miss the ones that I feel like he would benefit most from being a part of.
Right, like Gordo would have given this episode 4 buttholes, and he can't be here to do that, and it's fucking weird that he can't be.
I said at the top of the episode Apple TV, but it's technically Apple TV Plus, right? What's the difference?
Apple TV is the device.
Just the name, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, like I have an Apple TV and I can watch shows on it. Apple TV Plus is the service that they put original content on.
Right.
Okay.
That said, this show is written by some of the funniest people in the entire world, and I had never heard of it until like 2
Apple
weeks ago.
TV is so bad at advertising. So
I have an Apple TV. I have the machine in my living room. I watch it every day. You think at one point they'd be like, hey, buddy, you like It's Always Sunny, right? Like, look, it's fucking Rickety Cricket. You want to watch this show? I would have been like, I guess, sure.
This is another show. If Ferg picked it, if he hadn't, I didn't know the show existed. I had no idea until he picked it.
Here's the problem, I think, though, because we've talked about this before, about how Apple TV is bad at advertising. They probably advertise plenty, but we're not going to see the advertisements on Hulu, on Netflix. Their direct competitors are
On
not going
Roku.
to advertise for them, which is primarily what everybody's watching nowadays.
But people own Apple everything now. Like, I think I'm the only person on earth who doesn't own an Apple product. So, like, you can pump it out to everybody.
I just spent $700 on a new iPhone this week.
Yeah, you don't have to, like, send everyone episodes or anything, but there's a way to advertise, like, within the devices they have.
For them to be successful, they either have to merge with another platform or one of the big titans has to die. Like, Netflix has to go out of business. It's just too many.
I think this is a Cobra Kai scenario. Nobody gave a shit about Cobra Kai when it was on YouTube Red or whatever, because who was going to watch that? And then all of a sudden they were like, let's put it on Netflix. And Cobra Kai became this humongous show. I think if they were smart, when they renewed this show for a second season, they would have put season 1 onto Netflix or Hulu to get people hooked. And then they would have come over for the second season.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a bad idea. Because Ted Lasso is the only other Apple TV Plus show we've covered, right?
Right.
And maybe the only other one I could name. And to be fair, I didn't know the name of this until a week ago.
That show is popular. Like, Ted Lasso is popular, but I don't think it's nearly as popular as it could be.
If it was on Netflix or Hulu, it would be so much bigger,
Even HBO, like...
HBO Max, or The Max, or whatever it is now. The Max. I think now they name their station after a weird pedophile Saved by the Bell restaurant.
Oh, I was thinking of the old MTV
show?
cartoons, yeah.
Next on Eon Flux is...
MTV's Oddities.
Ferg, I mentioned that you picked it. Was there any particular reason you picked this not sitcom?
I just really enjoyed the show, and this is about as much a sitcom as some of the other non-sitcoms we've chosen. So
I'll give you that.
But I remember seeing. It's funny we're talking about how it's not advertised. I remember seeing briefly advertisements for this, but not a lot of them. And being like, oh, it looks okay. What's it on? Apple TV? No, I guess I'm not gonna watch it. And then one of my other buddies like, you gotta watch that show, and I love Always Sunny. And ironically, I hate Mac on Always Sunny. It's like my least favorite character, but I gave it a shot. I got hooked, and then I went full on binge. I watched all the seasons of this. Like
I did the same thing.
like
I haven't finished it yet, but I did a pretty heavy binge at one point. I could not stop it. But so the comparison I always in my head thought about, and I'm pretty sure we've all seen both of these things. So it's got a very Silicon Valley meets.
Oh yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Meets Grandma's Boy. It's like if those two things had a television show child. And I love both of those shows.
I love both of those things.
It's kind of like the best parts of both of those too.
Heavy on Silicon Valley. It is 80% Silicon Valley.
It definitely leans that way. I don't know about 80%, but
yeah, I'd say it's 60-40. There's a lot of scenes where they're in like the boardrooms that feel very much like Grandma's Boy.
Right.
Grandma's Boy, the movie that I was like, I don't know if this is funny, and then he was drunk and high and put his hands on the tray in the oven to take out his food at 2 a.m, and I was like, this is the most relatable movie to any teenager.
Of course she doesn't have a microwave. She's fucking 100. R.I.P.
It's so cold when you're dead.
How did he see me? This show, when I explained it to people this week when I was talking about it, I used it for me, I'm not a gamer, right? So to me, it was like The League. When The League first came out, one of our friends was like, you'll love this show. You'll think it's so funny. And I was like, I don't watch football. I know nothing about football. I don't know how I'll find this funny. And then I watched The League and was like, oh, I get it. It doesn't matter. It's not so much about that. This is the same thing. Or if you told me the like elevator pitch to this show,
yeah,
I'd be like, I can't watch this. I'm going to be lost. It's not like my world. And then I watched it and was like, this is fucking hilarious. I get it.
I mean, you could say same with Ted Lasso. Like, I don't like soccer in any way, shape, or form. And I loved that show. And maybe that just goes, maybe we're just too close-minded. maybe we should give more shows a chance, regardless of the plot.
To that, I will say, though, Nick, we give a lot of shows a chance because we literally spend 52 weeks a year watching sitcoms. We watch a lot of them that we probably never would have given a chance to.
Yeah.
This is a show created by, we bring up Always Sunny, and Rob McElhenney, the star of the show, also one of the creators, along with Charlie Day, also of Always Sunny fame, but just not in the show itself. And then someone by Megan Ganz is the third person on the creative side of this. I think this is the only thing that she's created, but when I look at her credits as far as writing goes,
a lot of good
writing. She's been
writing.
in television writing for a while. She's written for Always Sunny, Community, Modern Family, Last Man on Earth, all shows we've covered. So
a lot of my picks.
Yeah, if you go back, if you're pretty new to us, go back. We've covered all of those shows and give those a listen. I guess a good time to remind you guys, go to S1E1 Pod. That's where you can find S1E1Pod.com, rather, which is where you can find all the links to where you can listen to us, our social medias. S1E1Pod, not .com, is where you can find our Twitter and Instagram, all that stuff. So interact with us, hit us up. We like to know what shows you want us to cover and just talk to us in general. It's nice to find out.
Before we start the episode, one thing I wanted to note real quick is, Jay,
we already started. We've been doing this episode for a while, Joe. We're live, pal.
Sorry, before we start the review, before we get deep into the minutia of the episode, you said something very telling about this when we all were like, where was this show? You're like, started in February 2020.
Oh, yeah.
We're like, everything was happy, shiny people in February 2020, and by March 2020, the world had fallen apart. But we all thought that it was only going to fall apart for a little while, so we all just watched Tiger King, and by the time Tiger King was over, we were all just like miserable, scared.
This is great, no work.
Yeah. But 2 weeks of it was amazing. I was like, I'm going to get so much done. I'm going to work out every day.
I would say that should have helped this show. Everyone was just home watching TV.
If it was on any other network, I think it would have.
If it was something that people were aware existed, yes.
Yeah.
And then I thought this was a little interesting. Just looking at, like, I always try to look at the IMDb and Rotten Tomato scores. Rotten Tomatoes has a critic score of 97%, audience of 85%, And then the IMDb is at a 7.7. So they're all just, they're not that close. They're all a little different. All decent ratings, but kind of all over the place.
But all in the C to B range, which I think is fair.
Well, high A for the critic score, 97%. So
Oh, it was 97, I think it was 87.
yeah, no, 97, 85, and then 77 essentially. So I think like of the ones we've covered, since I've tried to start noting that stuff, the biggest difference I saw from the three numbers.
And again, I wonder if that's skewed by how few people have maybe seen it.
Yeah, well, no, because that's all based on the people who have seen it are the ones rating it. So
Right, but when you get a larger audience,
yeah, you'll get a better
you
number.
get a bigger number, you know?
Yeah, to get into the actual review of the episode here, it starts with it's like a commercial, but it's really played out almost like this infomercial documentary style, the way it's presented. And it's just telling you about what Mythic Quest is. And it breaks down it's kind of a good device for us, right? As someone who's being introduced to the show, this commercial. And it's kind of telling you about the game and how big it is these days and how it's expanded over time and how now they're about to launch their new expansion, which is called Raven's Banquet. We meet Ian, who's the creator of the game, and that's played by Rob McElhenney. He's kind of going over his vision and starts introducing you to all the other characters, which I won't go over all the names now, but as a viewer, it was a really nice way to get caught up to speed right away. I thought it was kind of nice. It was almost like, okay, this is eating up the first 2 to 3 minutes of the episode, but it's putting us right into this world.
And you already get an idea that he's kind of a pretentious load because his name is Ian and he goes by Ian. So like you already are like right into the world of knowing like, okay, this guy's a shithead.
Yeah. And I like when it did end, they were like, what is this? And he's like, it's a commercial for the game. It's like, no, it's a commercial for you. But, yeah, no, I did like using this as the device. And I mentioned minutes earlier, yeah, this was what, a near 28-minute episode because I think just does this deliberately at this point.
In my regular life, a 28-minute episode of a show, not a problem at all. In my taking notes so I can analytically discuss a TV show episode, 6 extra minutes on a show is hard to get through sometimes.
I'll say this time, where this was so just kind of dialogue heavy the whole episode, I didn't find it that tough on a note standpoint to kind of get through it. But I don't want to make a habit of these super long episodes.
Some fans of ours have suggested some shows too where they're like, I think you guys would do great. And you look at it, it's like 47 minutes. It's like, how fucking dare you? That'll never happen.
We would have to be like, you could pay us to do privates. If you really want
Jay's
to see
only fans will. You can pay
Jay for his privates.
Yeah, if you want to pay me, we'll do a nice long episode. But
Jay's long privates you can pay for.
I wish, pal.
Don't we all?
So yeah, and from there we get just a quick intro, which is just like the title screen with some music, very game based. So it makes it look like the game, what would have probably been the intro to the game as well.
Yeah, and I like to so it goes Mythic Quest and the sword comes down and like kind of pierces the M and the Q, and then it says Raven's Banquet underneath, which is cool because I know doesn't matter after what we're talking about, but each season is named the expansion's name. So like next season it's called something else, which I think is a different way to do it instead of 1, 2, 3, whatever.
Yeah, I like that.
It's a
It
cool
keeps
way
it
to do
in
it.
one world.
Right, yeah.
So it's funny, you mentioned COVID earlier. One of the seasons they invent this it's like a big plague. And it happens during COVID, so they put out the release of this plague thing, and then COVID on the show happens, and it really hurts the business. It was just that's the season they put out during COVID, so they kind of worked with it, and they have a full episode that's just all via Zoom clips and creative ways.
Yeah, I forgot about that episode. It's actually pretty good.
I like the idea of that, but I will say so many things were happening at that time where do you remember there'd be Saturday Night Live episodes where it was everybody's gonna do a skit from their home, where I was I can't fucking handle this anymore. I don't want to. I'd rather watch no TV.
Normally I'd agree with you, but this is the one show they did it so tastefully, and it's one episode. It's not the full season that's like that, and I really enjoyed that episode.
I mean, anything has to be better than wrestling with the screen people faces. That was the most jarring, awful thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
I think it's one of those things, and I don't want to get too into it because it's not this episode. All that stuff that happened in the COVID era with television, it made sense for shows to address it, and it kind of created a unique way to introduce storylines that are just a different perspective than what they would have ever been able to do otherwise. But I'll say this stuff now being a couple years, well, I think technically just months removed from it, but it dates it in a weird way and not in a fun nostalgia way. So it's very interesting to go back and see these shows now where they're talking about masks and everything else and social distancing and just, I don't know, we lived it. It's not like where I want to go for my entertainment.
No, I just don't want to talk about it ever again. You know what I mean? Just like, this thing happened. It was real shitty. I remember doing like a jump and kick my heels in the air the first time I walked into a coffee shop, and they were like, "We're not wearing masks," and I was like, "Holy shit, we're back!" And I got COVID like right after, so it wasn't like it was really fucking gone, you know.
Like in celebration, we're all drinking from the same large cup.
Right, like everybody make out real quick, like a Caligula scene.
I get the urge or like the knee-jerk reaction to incorporate COVID into what you're doing, whether it be a movie or a TV show. I guess more TV show. I don't know why you would put it into a movie that wasn't a part of the movie already. Yeah. But I appreciate the people way more who decided to just ignore it and pretend like it didn't happen.
I agree.
Because it's just a part. Nobody wants to remember that. Nobody wants to go back. I get anxiety thinking about having to wear a mask all day, every day again. I don't want to have to relive it. So I appreciate when people ignore it.
I think
the reason why
subway,
a lot of these shows, though, incorporated into their storyline was they had to explain why on the show there was only 4 people on screen at a time on a show that there's usually 1 million. And,
right, true. Yeah.
And they couldn't just keep the show on hiatus. They had to make these shows with what they had, so why not incorporate it?
One of the most creative ways, and it's a show we'll definitely cover, it's on my list, is there was a show called American Housewife that ended last year that was really, really funny. Diedrich Bader was in it. I forget the woman's name, the actor, but she's the girlfriend on Eastbound and Down. She's like the mom in it. A bunch of people are in it, but one of the characters in the show, in that season where they recorded during COVID, she like couldn't be there because she had kids, and like it was like too risky, so they just said that she was on vacation. Like she like met some guy and they went to like Barbados or whatever, so she would just pop in once an episode and be like on Zoom being like, "What are you guys up to?" And I was like, that's the best way to do it because you understand why they're doing it, but they don't just like throw it in your face, you know. Ali Wong, it was Ali Wong who did it.
So anyways, after the title screen, we get to, it's like a conference room staff meeting going on, headed by Poppy. And Poppy's like the kind of main developer and kind of creator behind behind this game and everything going on.
Yeah, she's head programmer.
Okay.
She's like the lead engineer, right?
Yes. And, she's kind of going over like all the stuff that's coming out with the new Raven's Banquet that's coming out. And she's got like the little clicker doing the slideshow presentation and just getting ready to launch. I think they're days away from this launch that they've been working on for the last couple of years. And as it's about to wrap up, Ian, who's like the top guy here, was like, "Wait, hold on 1 second. Like, are you sure we're totally done?" And then he kind of goes back and he happens to have his own clicker. And he goes back and he finds this shovel. And basically this whole episode is just based around the idea of the shovel that's being added to the game. It's like the whole thing was this power struggle, really, because Poppy did something on her own. And Ian so like needs to be on top of every little aspect of the game that this shovel was created without him really being aware of it. And he seems really off-put by it. Needs to put like his flavor on it.
Yeah, he can't deal with the fact that he had no part in this shovel. It's literally just a shovel. There's nothing.
It's just a shovel.
Special about it. It digs. It looks like a normal shovel. You can't use it as a weapon. It's just a shovel.
I will say, though,
changing.
Last month I bought a shovel for the first time in a long time, and when you're in the store with one, you definitely start swinging around a little bit. Like it's like a weird, weird thing. Where just like in the Ocean State job lot, being like,
if I had to, right?
It's in those situations. Also, like the idea of shovels, like it's one of those you need to have one, but you hate paying for one when you buy it because you're like, this is so much money. But you need the shovel. Like, there's no way around it.
it's dumb adult stuff you don't think you need, and then one day you're buying a rake and you're like, $40. You're like, just fuck, what do I do now?
But you grow up in a house where you already have everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're a kid, and everything already exists. So then when you have to like start over, or like all these little things pop up, and you just realize that
I was like, I want to buy a lawn chair, $200. I'm like, I don't need a lawn chair that much.
I will sit in the grass. I will not pay for this.
And we get a quick cut during this meeting when an elevator opens, and we meet David, who's the executive producer of the project. Correct? Is that his title?
I believe
Yes.
he's executive producer of the whole area.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And he has a new assistant, Joe, and he's showing her around. And during this whole time where he's like showing her the office, it's noted that there's a meeting going on, because he was like, oh, we have to wrap things up. I have a meeting to go to. She's like, aren't they already having a meeting? And that's when he realizes that there's already a staff meeting in session. We cut back into it, and David's kind of like rushing in mid-argument between Ian and Poppy with the shovel and trying to kind of catch himself up on what's going on here.
This is David Hornsby, who plays Rickety Cricket in It's Always Sunny, and he's playing a very similar character, and he's so good at playing the, like, stepped upon...
Yes. The peasant.
Yeah, the guy who thinks he has power but has no power at all amongst all these people.
He's like... Yeah, not in that extreme way, obviously, and he has like a legit title here, and he's like kind of overseeing everything, but just not respected.
It's funny because like, so this is the way I understand it. I'm not sure they ever really specifically get into it, but the way I understand it is Ian Grimm makes this game, and he makes this game on his own at some point when he was younger, and it becomes super popular, and then like everything that becomes popular, it gets a corporate structure implemented, right? So although Ian is the person who created it, it needs the CEO, it needs the producers, it needs all of these things. This is what it is. So he kind of doesn't have power, except for the fact that he is the main creative person behind everything, and nobody follows it. Everybody still just follows Ian and totally ignores. I keep wanting to just call him, what the fuck is his actual
Cricket?
name? It's not Cricket, yeah.
David
And I
Hornsby.
guess the character Ian is kind of based on the guy who was the head of Ubisoft, who I guess they helped with a lot of the graphic stuff for this show.
Ubisoft,
I guess,
yeah. What's his name?
I guess his beard and like Ian's beard and his bracelets and some of his speech patterns were like directly taken from him.
It is smart too, though, to get like an actual video game company with them, because they lean heavily on you need video game footage, right? This is about putting a game out, and they also use it for all the sort of interstitials between scenes. So you actually have, it would be weird if they just didn't show any of that,
Now, like Nick, for you guys, like you guys both game, I don't touch anything really ever other than Candy Crush. For this type of show, with what you guys are getting so far, with what little scenes you're seeing, does it seem like they're talking out of their ass, or does it feel like authentic enough, like this, like it works?
Like, I don't really play like World of Warcraft, which is what this is based off, but this is essentially what they do every few years, is they put out the expansions and stuff, so it seems pretty spot on.
Yeah, so I like that they picked a game like this because it gives them longevity. The difference between like MMO and like your typical, more popular A+ game, or
And
like
an MMO stands for what?
massive multiplayer online.
Okay.
Massive, right? Massive multiplayer online. And that it's an RPG, so it's a massive multiplayer online role-playing game.
MMORPG.
And the difference between something like an MMORPG and like your Call of Duties and stuff like that is Call of Duty is going to release new games every year or two, right? You're going to get Call of Duty 1, 2, 3. These MMOs are like, they just update and upgrade the same base game, and they just kind of run with that. And that's kind of what you're seeing here, is like this new expansion that they're releasing to the Mythic Quest world that already exists. So I think that's cool that they're doing it that way. You don't have to get a new game every season or every time they're going to transition out of it. It's just kind of an adaptation off of something, which makes it easier to write around. And also, I just read this. I didn't realize this. All the interstitials that Joe is talking about are actual video games, like other video games. They use For Honor, Kingdom Come Deliverance, Red Dead Redemption 2, things from Assassin's Creed. So they didn't make these. They're actually just using other licenses.
So they're not even like reskinning them or anything. They're just
not that I know of.
Straight up footage.
No. Yeah,
I do remember the last time I played video games, sort of heavy, I guess, would have been in high school. I do remember really liking Red Dead Redemption's the cowboy game, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember having that in high school. I remember the Call of Duty that was like you storm the beach at Normandy, and I loved all of the Vice City and all the GTA games back then. But I'm gonna need one of you to come up and help me set up my PlayStation 2 so I can play this again.
During this argument, we hear, the problem is they don't want to delay the launch. So by changing the shovel over and making the shovel something different, or just editing how it looks, like whatever it is, this is going to take time. And they're trying to launch in a few days. And this is something that they've been working on for a couple of years. It just seems like a silly thing for them to keep going on about. Ian's trying to insist that like everything needs to be perfect, and this is all kind of tied into his legacy. And he's asking them all about like what the first games are that kind of like they fell in love with, that they remember, when they were kids. And they're all answering questions like saying Contra and Grand Theft Auto and Miss Pac-Man. I was wondering for you guys, do you remember like that first game that you were just obsessed with as a kid and just played nonstop?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually wrote down because I was like, I actually have two. Yeah.
It's Mario, like Super Mario, like Mario is what got me into that. And then, I don't know if you guys ever remember, I played this game until my thumbs bled. Adventure Island, which is very similar side scroller like Mario. I never saw it after I played it in 1992 or whatever, but it was one of my favorite games of all time.
There's like 8 of them.
Really?
Yeah.
I gotta go look
Tons of
that up.
Adventure Island games. They're all the same.
Forgot about you.
My OG was the original Zelda. I used to, before I could even pick up a controller, I used to watch my sister and aunt play it. And then to this day, I recently just beat the newest Zelda, so it stuck with me.
I remember being at a point, real young, because when I was like a small child, like my dad had just the regular NES. So then like Super Mario, obviously one of those for me. Punch Out. I played a lot of Mike Tyson's Punch Out. So all those like early Nintendo
Contra.
games really got me for a
Contra.
while. I never had Contra, so it wasn't in the house, so I didn't really play.
It's funny. I never had it either, but my aunt and my uncle had the Super Nintendo adapter that you could put Game Boy games in. And so they had the Contra Game Boy game, and I'd always play it on their Super Nintendo. I never actually owned it myself.
Did any of you guys ever play Tiger Heli or Blades of Steel? Those are my two.
Oh,
Blades
of
I don't
Steel,
even
yeah.
I don't even like hockey, and I love Blades of Steel.
Blades of Steel was so great because you just started fights, and then the loser got the penalty.
The loser
That
got
was
the
so
penalty.
amazing.
And it had a
Yeah.
weird like mid-period, like you played like kind of a fake Galaga for no reason in the middle of the game.
Yeah.
I
Tiger
played a
Heli
lot
was
of
a game. It was a side scroller, Nick, but it went the other. It went sort of like forward though. It was like forward scrolling, and you were a helicopter and you dropped bombs on things, and they just made
I
little,
remember
like,
that. Yeah.
like buttholes, like when you like blew up something, and it was so fun as a kid. Also, holy shit, all of us being like, "What video games did you play a lot when you were a kid?" And everyone we just said is from like 1987.
I know. But I mean,
when we
that's
were
just
kids. Yeah.
yeah, that's what it was. It's all we had.
Just weird getting old, man.
Kids don't know how good they have it.
Yeah, kids right now, if they have a video game that has helicopter buttholes, it's something totally different than the game we played that had something similar to that.
After the meeting's over, we cut over to this girl Rachel, who's looking through like a little window and notices that they had another meeting and didn't invite them. Them being her and Dana, they're the two game testers that live there. Not live there, but they basically just sit in a little room by themselves and they play this game nonstop looking for bugs.
Dana, who was in a previous S1E1 podcast show.
Oh, what was she in?
She's a sister in Everybody Hates Chris.
Oh no shit.
Oh, no kidding.
Hey, she grew up. Good for her.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I
she's
mean, that
a lot
was
older now.
15 years ago or whatever.
Yeah,
but
I didn't check anybody's like IMDb's and see what else they did. That's crazy.
Ashley Birch is kind of like they wedged her in. I don't know if like this is what she wanted to do, but she's been the voice of like 30 video game characters.
Oh yeah, the girl who plays
The other
Rachel,
tester.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked through her IMDb and was like, everything in here was like animation, voiceover, like that was like real life stuff. It was like this only. It was like, good for you, man. Make that money.
Yeah.
Just doing voice work. It's like, I'm so
It's gotta
jealous
be
of
the
that.
best thing, right? Like, you can be famous and good and successful and nobody knows who you are.
It's the Daft Punk thing. I always say those
Right?
guys are
Yeah.
multi-millionaires. When they walk into Starbucks, nobody's like, fucking latte for Daft Punk. It's just some guy with no helmet on who gets to go and be a millionaire later. It's like the perfect job, aside from having to,
And I don't want to
listen
make it
Daft
sound
Punk all
like
the time.
that's an easy job. That's
No, of
definitely
course
a very
not. It's a hard
difficult
We have-
profession.
We have
to
a
pick.
very good friend who listens to this
Yeah.
to us every week, Emily. Hello, who does voice work. Yeah, I did.
And I'm so jealous of your job, Emily.
Yeah, I did find it interesting that Rachel basically just comes from that world of like video game acting, and then I don't know. I didn't check her whole. I saw that tidbit about her, but I didn't see if she had a lot of acting credits or if this was just kind of a weird one-off.
It seems like she might just now be getting into acting. Like,
because she was
like,
really
on
good.
screen
I thought
acting.
at least
on screen.
So
yeah,
you know,
she's great in this. Yeah, I will say this is a weird thing where like I forget what episode we did a couple weeks ago, but I was like, oh, I felt like maybe that was the one where somebody may have been on a Mantis episode because it was kind of older and a big
God,
cast.
fucking Mantis again.
And this one, I'm looking up some of these people, and it's like, well, they're 14 years old, and their first acting credit was on some Nickelodeon show you never heard of 2 years ago, and you're like, oh my god, this is so weird.
Joe, I would say if you're really like desperate to try to get like the Mantis thing going, just find episodes and then reverse engineer it. Find an actor and see if they did any sitcom pilots.
I've done a lot of it. It's hard to find anybody who's been on a pilot, but I have to go through every single episode. Is the problem?
But
Well, it's because they all peaked on Mantis.
That's true.
You don't
can't go any
down.
bigger than Mantis.
So moving forward, this conversation between the two girls is basically about, we have good ideas. Why don't they invite us to the meetings? We're the ones playing the game 24/7. And during this, it becomes very apparent that Rachel has a very big crush on Dana. And it's in, the way she talks to her, the way she looks at her, but I don't think Dana is picking up on any of that. But it's very clear when Rachel's interacting with her in any way.
I think the funniest thing about this scene too, though, is when he was like, "We should get back to work." It's like, "Yeah, they track our eyeballs." I was like, "That's fucking bananas."
Yeah. Well, to be fair though, if that's your job,
Sure.
It would be easy to fuck off all day and not actually get any work done, right? So if there's going to be a way, I mean, this is your job. You're playing video games all day. You kind of got to be accountable for actually doing it. So I don't necessarily disagree with that. Tracking your eyeballs is a little ridiculous.
I would say if you're not reporting any bugs, but if you are finding things in the game and there's proof that you're getting things done, then this world of technology.
I don't think she was being literal that they were tracking their eyeballs. I think it was just being hyperbolic.
Maybe.
I
I believe it, though,
But I
in the
could see
heightened
it,
world
yeah.
of this.
In this world, in this tech type video game coding world, it feels like it fits. So in the moment I believed it to be true.
I mean, other companies, I don't know if, Nick, you've had this in your job you've had before, or Ferg, I know you work on a computer all day long. Like, do you have, like, trackers and things, or things that scan your hard drive every day to make sure you're not downloading things by accident? Like,
No,
these
I'd
jobs-
so be fired.
Well, I mean, like, well, sure, but I mean, like, your hard drive, I think, is more the thing they check for, make sure, like, downloading viruses or whatever. But, like, there are checks and balances for a lot of jobs, especially as a lot of us work from home now,
I think it was back to COVID. I think it was like a byproduct of it being because more people were working from home, that like your status, like your physical like activity was being monitored on your computer, because they didn't want people to be like, okay, yeah, I'm working, but I'm gonna just like lay in bed until I get an email. Like they want
Go
your
to the
computer
gym,
being used, which I luckily, knock on wood, don't have that. But it's just, I don't know. That stuff seems like really oppressive. I wouldn't want to work for a company who wants to like vice grip you to the fucking desk that badly.
I do find it interesting, the other places now that are like, oh, there's a block on like you watch like The Office or something, right? When the new regime comes in, they're like, we took off the time waster websites like Facebook or whatever. You're like, everybody has a smartphone. Like if you took Facebook off of, and those people are going to be on Facebook on their phone anyway, or any of those sites, so like you can't stop it.
So now we cut over to a conversation between Poppy and Brad. Brad, who you would know from being on Community. What's his name? Danny Pudi?
Danny Pudi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
AKA Abed from Troy and Abed in the morning.
Yeah, and then knowing that, Megan Ganz or whatever is one of the people who wrote for that show for a while, it's always kind of, when you see where all those links come from after a while and like how the show comes to be. But yeah, they're having this conversation and Poppy's basically telling them that she wants to leak the shovel before the launch. So, basically good word would come out about it and then it won't get changed because Ian will already see that it's being positively reviewed and wants to be leaked to Pootie Shoe. And Pootie Shoe is a 14-year-old live streamer who does a lot of video game reviews and stuff like that. And apparently, we find out has roughly, 10 million followers.
14 million.
14 million? Oh, all right. So.
Real piece of shit.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're not a piece of shit for having followers.
No. This world is a real piece of shit for letting some dumb dick dildo little kid have this much power over anything.
This is the real world, Joe. This is not.
I know.
He's
That's what I'm saying. This is the worst.
No, I feel like
he's based on PewDiePie.
I was gonna say this name is based off of PewDiePie's name, right?
Who is PewDiePie?
He's a piece of shit.
He's like our age. Well, no, he's not our age. I forget how old we are.
I
But
don't
he
know
started
his age.
younger, right?
Okay, so he's
I'll
like
look
the-
it up right now.
So this kid is like a fictionalized version of some real person who's...
Oh,
yeah, but there are
He's
Just
33.
the name, though, he's an amalgamation of all the different fucking streamers.
There's
that are
a
out
lot
there.
of these streamers that exist in the world that have big followings.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it's anger out of jealousy, where it's like, oh, you do this at this age and you make how much money? It's just anger out of I worked at Staples when I was your age and that sucked. How dare you?
I mean, Nick, you delve into this world as well.
Yeah, I have tried streaming for a long time. And, well, I mean, I would say the biggest crux is that I'm not good at it.
Well, I was gonna say, give yourself a plug, but
Screen Punch Gaming. Go sign up, follow us. We'll stream something. I wanted to do something here. I wanted to play. Jay will only let us play sitcom games for some
I just
reason.
thought it made sense if we had
for the
if we were
one
gonna
that
do
was
some sort of a
made.
channel. No, I looked it up. There's a ton of them.
We could
Let us
play,
know if you would like to watch me, for Gordo, Joe, Jay play video games together, regardless of what it is. I would love to do that.
A
You would
24-hour
get the
live
same-
stream of just Gordo playing Boogerman that nobody watches.
Can we play Full House Tournament Fighter?
That's a thing.
Yep.
Wait, explain it.
Is it?
It's
Is
literally
like a
just
modded game.
like a modded
Okay.
It's super famous though. It's a Full House version of like Street Fighter, basically.
And your Full House characters
Your
fighting
Full
each
House
other.
fight-
How have I
yeah.
never heard of this?
Is Danny M. Bison?
I don't know.
Joe's gonna play in 2-player mode, but by himself, so the other character won't move, and he's just gonna make.
Just gonna beat up Dave Coulier.
Yeah, exactly. He's just gonna beat up Dave Coulier.
I'm going to pick whatever character looks the most like Alanis Morissette and just beat up Dave Coulier the entire time.
You can even fight as Comet.
Oh wow, nice.
Oh, poor Comet. R.I.P. I'm guessing 25 years ago.
I would say so.
Can
Otherwise,
you fight as
it'd be
Papuli?
Yeah, a world record.
You just play all
No,
the
'cause
dead
he's fucking
characters
dead.
from Full House.
So to get back into this, they show us like Pootie Shoes' live stream just to kind of give us a vibe for who he is. Early impressions of this kid. Joe, we
My
kinda
notes
already know how
literally
you
say,
They
I
nailed it.
fucking hate this
Yeah.
kid.
They got this kid, and I don't know if they like told this kid when they hired him, but they had to have seen his face and been like, yes, everybody's gonna want to punch this kid in the face. Let's hire this kid. He's also a great actor, but
I thought,
does a
the
really
acting
good
was
job
good. I
with the
thought he
role,
nailed
yeah.
that. Yeah, that kind of role, he really nailed it.
for his age to be that, believably douchey can't
Yeah.
be easy.
Just the way he communicated to his audience and stuff felt authentic. So I thought that
Right,
was
yeah.
really good. And they had when they show his screen, they're showing the little graphics of the chat and things like that to make it feel right. And I thought that was all done really well. I liked, in the middle of it, you hear his mom off camera asking if he's almost done because dinner's almost ready. And he's like, Mom, what the fuck? I'm streaming. It's like, You can't just fucking stop. I'm talking to 10 million people at the moment.
Yep.
The best part about that is, and I laughed really hard at that, and again, I will say, this kid's a real piece of shit, the character. This kid's a great actor to make you hate a fucking 14-year-old, right? Like, that's not something you expect to do, but I do love that later on he's like, my parents who I pay their mortgage. Like, it's such a great little line to slip in that, like, your parents are allowing you to be so mean to them because you're paying all the bills.
I just like how he goes from like doing his on-air persona to having to get into an argument with his mom and then cutting back out. It's like, oh, sorry about that. That was not chill. Goes back into his whole gamer thing.
I feel like this kid will be funny as an actor forever if he wants to stick with it. He's like got something for sure.
It's funny too because when you think about it, he has to play to the camera too. Everybody else is acting like regular actors, but he has to play to the camera all the time, which is probably even more difficult.
It's like phone acting when you're like pretending to be on a phone call, like how hard that is to like make it sound believable.
Right, yeah. So yeah, I mean, good casting.
I do love too that he gives a shout out to his pootie shooties, his pootie duties, and his LGBTQ pootie fruities. Like, holy shit, that is an insane fucking thing to say. I lost my mind laughing at that.
He says it all so fast too, and that's not easy. It's like a tongue twister. And he's
like, I said it slow and messed it up.
No, you nailed it too, bud.
I did it.
So after that, we get to a scene where Ian's doing like motion capture, and you see him with a shovel in hand, and there's like a monitor that's showing the character holding it. So like you're seeing the motion capture basically of the Knight character, like all in kind of gray. Just there's nothing really to it's not like in
basic,
a game. It's really basic, just kind of over a gray
polygon version of the character.
And he's like just trying to like move the shovel in different ways to kind of turn it into a weapon. And like as this is happening, he's like talking over the intercom system, and you see just like David and like 20 other people in the room watching him do this. And he's just trying to like hack at a watermelon, trying to decapitate, this fake thing with the shovel.
One thing to note here too is that this is where you first really notice that Joe has officially left David. That is just like Ian's right hand now for the whole
yes,
of the story.
And like I don't know if that ever officially switches, but throughout this episode, because he's like, hey, you're my assistant, and she's almost like, fuck off, and she just like stands by this guy's side.
So did we talk about I might have missed it, Jessie Ennis, the person who plays the assistant?
No, we didn't get into her specifically, no.
So she's actually born in Boston, but she moved to Los Angeles right when she was like, I think 2 or something. But I wanted to ask Joe, her dad, John Ennis, is an actor. He was on like, Walk Hard. It just feels like someone Joe would be like, oh, that guy. I don't really recognize him. I mean, you guys can, but look him up, John Ennis. Kind of close to penis. He seems kind of familiar.
Yeah, he's on Mr. Show, Bob and David.
Yeah, Mr. Show, I think, would be the most...
Yeah, I saw him and was like, oh, he's the guy from Mr. Show. He's in Zodiac. Yeah, he's in a ton of stuff. Yeah, he's good. I will say the one thing I looked up for her that she's in is another during COVID thing. They released a musical remake of the movie Valley Girl that she starred in, and I literally saw that and was like, that's one of those things from COVID I'm so glad I didn't know existed until this moment. Like, what a terrible idea that seems like.
The Mr. Show thing kind of comes full circle because the only other thing I know her from is Better Call Saul with Bob Odenkirk.
It's like what I was saying earlier. You find these links. Like, once you get somewhere, you kind of figure out where everything else happened from.
It's weird how incestual Hollywood is.
You don't see it so much in this first episode, but she basically fills in the Dwight role throughout the series. Like, she becomes like the Dwight of this show.
That seems right, yeah. I also like that her dad was the Big Bopper in Dewey Cox, so I could only hear that Dewey Cox being like, Big Bopper! Like, I just hear the John C. Reilly voice saying it. I've been halved!
When I mentioned earlier, like, that he was using watermelons, and he was saying that, it wasn't his fault that things weren't, like, working out properly, because it's, he can't explode real heads. And to what you guys are saying with Joe, this is when you really see her, like, standing by his side. She's like, I can get you real heads. Not human.
Not human.
I was thinking, like,
that's also a very Dwight line.
Yeah, what kind of head is she bringing then?
Probably like a pig head.
Like
deer,
goat head?
Goats,
yeah.
Will those explode properly upon shovel impact?
Well, that's why they always use pigs for those type of things. I guess like their bone, skin, and muscle, like density and construction is like identical to humans, so you get like accurate.
Yeah, that's why they dissect fetal pigs in school.
That's why
Also,
tattoo artists use
just reminded
pigs
me
too.
of a crazy article I read. I don't. Maybe you guys have seen it. I think it was pretty popular. So some guy's mom died,
Yes.
and she had Alzheimer's, I think. So he donated her body when she died to this Alzheimer's research, like that. Pretty much
Like
that's
study
it.
the brain and
Like, yeah, so like they could, dissect and study the brain after the fact. And they apparently just sold her body to the U.S. military to do some sort of explosive test on, and
they
they
just like shot a
blew
bomb
up.
at her.
They just blew this guy's poor mother up after he just like gave her body to science to try to help the disease that killed her, or try to help understand the disease that killed her, and they just strapped her to her chair and blew her up.
I am listed as an organ donor, and that would be literally my choice. I'd be like, no, put me in front of a missile and shoot the missile at me. I prefer that
See what
so
happens.
much more.
Yeah.
So Poppy walks in and sees everything that's going on, and she's trying to figure out like what's happening here. And this is when she finds out that the plan is to turn the shovel into a weapon so it has dual purpose and it's not just for digging. But she's back saying, no, this is only for digging. That's the whole purpose of the shovel. And that's when he's telling her, do you understand what the TTP on this is going to be? And that's TTP is time to penis. So basically he's saying that all things are, it's just a matter of time until people want to make dicks. And in
They're
this
not
game,
wrong.
if you give a digging tool, people are just going to dig things in the shape of dicks.
It's so accurate, though, right? That's just human nature.
It's 100% accurate.
I don't know why either. Like, why?
Why not?
I think people
Yeah,
always
that's
shit on the Robert California Office season. I think he's great in that. James
I
Spader is
agree.
so
I'm
funny.
with you,
love
Joe.
that
I love
season.
him.
Only Jay hates
Yeah,
it.
Jay can't stand him.
There's one scene
Yeah,
in
it's,
that
it's just
where-
me. I'm the only reason seasons 8 and 9 are hardly watched.
9 is
great.
great also.
I don't care. 9 obviously took a hit, but we're not getting into an office debate right
No,
now.
first half of 9 is real good though. But there is a scene where he's doing one of his like pushing people and just over talking them, and he's like, "People always draw houses and they always draw penises. Isn't it funny that they always draw colonial houses and circumcised penises?" And it's like that's always stuck with me because like nobody ever draws a different type of. No one's like, "Oh, it's a split level." Nobody ever draws like a penis with a foreskin. Like people just go to one specific dick always,
Yeah.
and it's just so easy to do. I don't know why.
That's why, because it's easy to draw, and some of us aren't artists.
That's true.
And that's why Joe started his All the Dicks initiative, where he's inspiring young children to draw all different types of dicks.
Draw your own dick, whatever it may look like. Don't say children in that. That's not good now. I don't like that at all. Fuck. That was like a delayed reaction where I was like, "Oh, come on, man! Don't cut this the wrong way."
Is that what you
Don't cut
told him to
this
do?
the wrong
Yeah.
way.
Firing young children to draw dicks.
God damn it!
So as they're having the conversation, Poppy's saying like they're not going to turn them into dicks, and she's saying how she's going to put a limiter on it so that they can't. And Joe says, "Shovel with rules, that's really cool." And Ian goes, "Yeah, let's put as many rules in the game as we can. That's super fun." That was like dialogue with those two when they jumped on that, with one of my favorite little like dialogue sequences of the whole episode.
I love his explanation too, where he's like, "You give the public a shovel, they dig dicks. You give them a pen, they draw dicks."
Facts.
And then while they're having the argument, it looks like Ian's going to get into like this whole speech. And as he's beginning to talk, Poppy clicks on like something and it changes the motion capture like icon from a knight to a gnome. So now it's just this little gnome talking that they're all looking at. And it derails them. Like, so she knows him pretty well. So as soon as he notices it, it really cuts them back off. And now they're just getting into an argument where they're both yelling at David to switch it. It's like, "David, switch it. No, don't switch it. Switch it. Don't switch it." And you can just see him panicking because he doesn't know who to answer to.
Which is like another theme of this episode too, right? It's like who does his allegiance lie with?
Mommy or daddy.
Yeah, mommy or daddy.
But I do love their relationship because it's not like a will they, won't they, but like they have a love for each other. They know each other so well.
I don't know if you had read this, but I guess it's out there that it's been made public knowledge. It's in their show Bible. If you're not aware, a lot of shows have like a show Bible that's like a list of all the character traits and all these things they need to follow about everybody, and kind of like just to make sure continuity exists too. But there's something written in there saying that they are forbidden to ever create a romantic storyline between the two of them.
It would ruin it.
Because the goal is to be like, hey, listen, it's a day and age where not every time there's a main male and female character, they have to become romantically interested in one another. So that's actually a sticking point for the show. That. Yeah, it's like, it is there's no will they, won't they. It is won't. It will never happen.
I do appreciate that, yeah.
And I think going back to Sunny too, right? Like, I don't think anybody ever has a romantic relationship with Dee, right?
Well, I'm sorry, what show did you say?
Dee's unlovable, that's why.
Oh.
And it's always Sunny. I mean, Cricket tries to a lot, but like Charlie
fucks her in an episode.
Yeah, but it's like it's not a romantic thing.
Yeah, he regrets it to this day.
But I would say,
episode. But look, there's no love. It's similar. There's no love story ever going to happen, you know.
And I would say this, right? If I was to continue watching this show, forgetting the fact that I already know that they're not going to end up together, I wonder if inherently, because I watch television, have been disposed to assuming that that's naturally what will happen, if I'm just going to be looking at things in that way all the time.
So I'll tell you, I did not know that fact until I read that too, until we did this podcast. Maybe Ferg can agree, maybe he can't. There is one episode where it maybe kind of feels like that's a direction they might go. And then it quickly gets squashed. But other than that, you never get that vibe, like ever.
So they're not planting seeds, so because of that, it doesn't really go into your head.
Right.
I always got just a familiar, how do I say it? Like a family bond between them. More than anything, even though they're not blood or anything.
Like more like a sibling relationship.
Brother, yeah.
So more like step siblings.
No, not step siblings.
No.
But as they're going back and forth with one another and they're yelling at David, to switch the character, we have like a sharp cut. And now we see David like laying on the couch in what looks to be a therapy session. And he's saying how like he feels like he's in the middle of his parents' divorce again. And I kind of like this whole scene in general, just the way he's talking about things, because he's self-diagnosing problems when he's thinking about, maybe that's why my parents did the things they did and all this. Come to find out that the person he's talking to isn't even a therapist. It's just the girl who works in HR, and he just doesn't understand like what's going on or what HR is supposed to be, which becomes the theme of the episode in general.
She's great in this as that like sort of beleaguered HR character. I imagine that must happen though in offices and companies all the time, right? Where like there must be people who like,
oh, for sure, yeah,
give way too much to HR person, expecting them to like respond more like a therapist than an employee.
I work at a company that we don't call HR. We have like a stupid other name for it, which thinking about it, like I feel like that would confuse someone even more, because to me HR is cut and dry. But when you walk into something else and it has a different name to it, I feel like all the more so you can think of, oh, that's the person I can talk to about my personal issues.
Don't ever confuse HR for somebody who's there to help you, because they're not. They're here to protect the company from you if something goes wrong.
Yes.
So deal with it
They're
yourself.
a barrier
sometimes.
between lawsuits.
Yeah, exactly it.
And if you work for HR, we're sorry.
Make it easier for me to take days off, damn it.
It's just knowing what they're actually there for.
Every company makes HR seem like this safe haven, and they're just not. That's not what they are at all.
Yeah.
I will say I am very good friends with one of the heads of HR at my company, and maybe it's like a personal thing because I'm like, oh, we're actually friends. I would feel like I could go to him in a situation like that. Honestly, I do. But every other company I've ever worked for where I wasn't actually friends with the person, you were like, it's not even worth talking to these people about this.
Yeah, Joe's just laying on their couch. He's like, I don't know, the other day I just got the weirdest boner.
He's just doodling dicks.
It's weird to talk about getting a work boner when you work at home, though. We're just like, so what were you doing, though? Like, come on, man.
Nobody needed to know.
So now we cut to the next day, and we're back in the office, and Poppy's watching the Pootie review with the shovel. Basically, he's not a fan of it, and he says in the review that he tried to dig a big dick and it won't let him, which is weak sauce. How it's censoring his art, #free Pootie. I'll say at first watching it, because she's like, I think this is just a problem with the way that they cut and directed it, because she's responding to the screen, But I thought at first that she was like live talking to him. So when she first spoke, I thought she was talking to him.
See why
directly.
you thought that, yeah.
Because his reply almost like was in direct response to what she said to him.
Right.
It seems more conversational, you know?
Yeah, but I was like, no, it can't be, because he's got like the whole side screen next to him with the chat. So I was like, there's no way that's what's going on.
I will say this is where I had that line where he's like, if I wanted to dig holes all day, I'd fire my gardener. That is the line that got the biggest laugh out of me in this entire show. It's just such a perfect encapsulation of like being a teenage shithead where he has the power over the gardener. That is so stupidly funny. Imagine getting fired by a 14-year-old when your job is like mowing lawns all day. How fucking miserable your life would be.
While she's watching this, Brad and Longbottom both enter. I only mentioned Brad because I didn't want to go over everything in the intro where everyone's kind of detailed out. Do you guys want to kind of get into like what his character is?
Brad?
No, Longbottom's.
Oh, he's basically like a famous author. He's got all kinds of rewards.
He won
So
like
they
the Nebula Award, they said?
Yeah. They hire him just to write the lore behind the games, like backstories and stuff like that.
He's like a famous sci-fi author. I'm sure he's like the surrogate for like the guy who wrote Game of Thrones or like J.R.R.
That's exactly what he is. You know how the Game of Thrones guy still hasn't finished like the last book of
he's like still
Game
doing
of Thrones,
books, right?
That's like the ongoing thing with CW is he still hasn't finished his book that made him famous.
And he's that's F. Murray Abraham that plays him, and he's only in 2 seasons.
Yes,
And
but he is in 8 billion things, and he did kill Amadeus.
he's in Last Action Hero.
He is. He's
Who was he in The Last Action Hero?
you know when they have to blow up the guy who's got the bomb in his belly at the funeral?
Yeah.
He is the FBI agent who turncoats him and sells him out at the beginning of that scene.
No shit. He was in, I don't know, I don't think any of you guys watched Homeland, but he was in like every season of that.
I have not.
More importantly, though, he is in both Serpico and Scarface. I mention that because, A, those are 2 amazing movies, but there's literally an entire episode of It's Always Sunny where Charlie tries to be Serpico. So I felt like that had to be Charlie being like, we should get F. Murray Abraham in here.
I love the way he talks. Like he just has this like old timey like dialect from like
He sounds like he sounds like he should be doing movie trailers, like the voiceover work for movie trailers.
In fact, I think it's his voice that's narrating the intro video.
It is.
I thought it was. So yeah, they walk in and basically Poppy's like, "Can you believe it? He doesn't like the shovel." Like, yeah, of course he doesn't like the shovel. It's stupid. And like, but we found a way around it. So like, you know, we can use the shovel in the game. And then they reveal Ian's new version of the shovel, like this more like golden, looks more like a mythical shovel.
Yeah, it's just like a bedazzled shovel, basically.
And it's being held by a wood nymph character that they want to bundle with it and do like a download pack. And it's basically, the idea is they're just trying to get her to create this wood nymph character that they want in the game, and by convincing her that they can bundle it with the shovel, then people will pay for it.
But they also reference, too, that when you get the shovel, you take it away from the wood nymph, so then ultimately you see the wood nymph topless.
Yes. And basically it's their own perversions that they want this in the game, but they're trying to convince her to put it in, because she's the one who makes it happen.
They know gamers.
I was going to say, that's like a very popular thing with gamers, right?
We talked about this before. I forget why, but like the idea of nudity in games came up in another one of our episodes. I don't remember which one off the top of my head. It wasn't that long ago. But in the like these kind of worlds, like that is commonplace for like straight up seeing breasts in a video game.
Oh yeah, God of War all the time.
I was gonna say I don't think I've ever played a game that has just had full on nudity in it. I've never seen it.
We grew up in a world where we were all convinced that there was a naked code for Mortal Kombat.
Right.
And
like, we could see Sonya naked.
Everyone had a friend who pretended they had the code, you know, but none of them really existed.
Was it Duke Nukem? Like, you could go see the stripper.
Yeah.
In, like, a certain part of one of the... Yeah.
There was also something where in The Sims, you could have the Sims in the shower and then pause it and then remove the shower.
Oh, there was legitimately a code in The Sims to get rid of the fucking blurring.
Yeah.
Because they just got censored in the game, but if you put in the code, it got rid of it. So you got triangle titties. Like,
I mean, we're also the generation where there was a Playboy issue where the main pictorial and poster fold out was Marge Simpson. Like, there is a problem with people born between the ages of 1975 and now somewhere.
That's also a thing where sometimes if any of you ever use adult websites, there will be like an advertisement on the side, and the advertisement would be like a famous cartoon character in an adult situation with another cartoon character, and you go, why is this in here?
It doesn't even have to be adult websites. Some of these like illegal pirating, like streaming sites, it'll be on the side. I'm like, come on, I just want to watch the new Spider-Man, and then this fucking Lois Griffin's tits.
That's
what you get for stealing movies. You have to see April O'Neil blow Raphael because you can't pay the $8 for Spider-Man. Fuck
for
you.
whatever reason, Lois Griffin seems to be the one that these perverts like drawing.
This is
the
your
most.
penance, yeah.
And,
Yeah, I don't understand the...
But hey, I guess, I don't know. Everyone's got their own things, and to those of you listening, if that's your thing, Godspeed.
We've said it many times on this show. We're not here to kink shame.
No, whatever you're into, you're into. But I never really understood how that became such a thing all of a sudden. But whatever. Anyways, Poppy's saying, I'm not creating this wood nymph character. This isn't gonna I'm not using. I don't even want to use this version of the shovel, anyways.
Did we ever mention like Poppy's heavy, like also I think it's Australian accent?
So she is Australian in real life, but we didn't discuss it. But
I want to bring it out. I love her voice.
I do really like the Australian accent.
Yeah. From there, we get to this montage of Ian with the shovel, and you just kind of see him use in silhouette form, and then close up, just in him in the office holding it and just trying to figure out the right motion to make this a thing in the game, and trying to use it as a weapon.
This is like the most Mac I ever see in him. Like, Mac doing the karate by
doing
himself
karate,
and
yeah.
stuff. Like,
and I like that he has this almost secret door in his office where you had to flip it so he can look out and yell out for someone to grab him a coffee. And you see Joe, I'm coming in.
So his wall is a giant mural of one of the character warriors, and his little thing basically is a zipper. So he pulls right out of the guy's zipper. It's fucking perfect.
And Joe's just sprinting down the hallway to get him a coffee too.
They're Joe, not our Joe.
Yeah, not our Joe.
It would be a very long sprint to bring you guys a coffee right now.
And we get to a close-up of Rachel now, and she's basically saying everything that she's wanted to say to Dana, and how she thinks about her all the time, and all these things about her, the way she bites on her hair, asking her if she feels the same. And then you hear, I don't know, do you think that'll work? And she's not talking to Dana. She's also in the HR office now. And Claire, who's the HR woman's like, I don't know, I'm human resources. This isn't what I do. And I like that was a running theme, that it wasn't just a one-off, that it's just no one in the office understands what HR is for.
I love that she goes, are you going to tell on me?
Oh, that was the best. She's like, why, you going to rat me out? If I rat you out, it would be to me.
To me? Also, the dumbness of this scene I thought was such good writing, where when she's like, I love the way that you chew on your braid. That is the most realistic thing for someone to say. The kind of thing that you would find attractive about a person that you would never find attractive about anybody else that is not actually attractive. You know what I mean? That makes it feel very real when she's saying that.
Yeah, it's
like
those
when
little...
you chew your braids, Joe.
Thank you.
It's the little things, yeah. When you develop a crush on someone, it just becomes more than the obvious. And then you notice all those little things about them that make them unique. And when Claire's saying that, I'm starting to think that nobody in the office understands what I do, Poppy runs in and she's like, oh, you ready? You cool for a session right now? It's
they call it a session.
It a session.
I love that too, that when Poppy leaves, she's like, oh, it's not her. She has to clarify that's not who she was talking about.
And then from that scene, we get to a new one where now Carol is calling a meeting in the office, and they're all kind of in the main area. And this is just basically for her to just explain that there's been a lot of abuse in the office lately. It was like, oh no, has someone been harassed? Yes, David, me. And then she's just kind of trying to make it very clear to everyone that, what she does is not therapy. I didn't bring this up before, but now that we're back in this main area again, I do want to talk about the office that they work in. Because we did bring up Silicon Valley earlier, and it does kind of have that vibe once they left the house. That really modern, cool workspace situation. The place that you think would be just, in theory, would be a really fun place to work at.
It's the kind of office that people don't call an office, they call a campus. It's one of those stupid buzzwordy things that companies are using. Yeah.
Because they got like kitchens and stuff.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Google.
I worked for a company like 12 years ago. It was like a startup in Boston. They like restructured a bunch of stuff and like we all got laid off. Like the people who were like the dumb idiots who unloaded the trucks, like they weren't going to use us anymore. And they took all their money and they moved to like a brand new office. And the dumbest thing they ever did, they were like you were like laid off, not like quit or whatever. So like you have to go get your last check. Like we're holding your last check and like maybe there's like some sort of severance or whatever. But they were like, we'll come to the new office and pick it up. We were like, wait, you're going to make us go to your brand new office and see everybody like stoked to be in this new cool place? And they like wouldn't let us leave with our checks until we did a tour. And they're like, this is the library. Over here is where we keep all the iPads for people who are having like a tough day and need to chill out. And it was this exact kind of thing. And we had to go through the whole tour because they were holding our final checks over our heads.
That's
it was
so
maddening.
Insufferable, yeah.
Did they have a reason? Like, did they explain why they're making you do this at this place you're not working at anymore?
No, we were just looking at each other being like, we have to do this? Like, can we just go? Like, this is so weird. They fucking laid us all off. Like, why am I dealing with this?
Give me my money.
I'll say it out loud. Gazelle.
That was the company that you basically like, oh, we'll buy all your old like phones off of you and shit. You can buy
Yeah.
other old.
I don't even
I
know
don't know
if
if
they're
you
still
remember, Joe, but you got me an interview there and they bailed on me.
Weird.
Yeah. They were like, oh, yeah, come here. And then they like rescheduled and then never got back to me ever.
All right, so let's send our fans after them. Everybody get Gazelle.
I don't know if Gazelle still exists.
I don't even know if they exist.
We did it!
I know at that time, though, there was one kid who came in the middle of the night and stole a bunch of computers, and they were like, we caught you, like, dead to rights. You used your login card to get in. We have you on camera stealing all his computers. Then they had him arrested, and he, like, got out on bail or whatever, and then he went to court for the trial, and they were like, this kid's probably going to get banged with, like, 5 years or whatever, and then nobody showed up. So they were like, you're free to go, I guess. We're all like, wait, what?
They still exist.
They do.
Oh,
They're still in
wow.
Boston?
Yeah.
Good for them. Well, another
Oh,
glowing
man.
advertisement.
I mean, again, that was like over a decade ago.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
In any
15
event,
years ago.
yeah. So during this meeting of sorts, Ian walks in and he's trying to figure out what's going on here. And they're catching him up a little bit, and everyone's just kind of trying to get their shit in. This is when the idea of the wood nymph comes up and all this other stuff, and he's trying to get his head around everything. And you notice that the testers are there. He's like, what are they doing in this meeting? and Rachel's like, actually, we have
Shit's
some good
all
ideas.
over them.
And then Rachel's trying to get Dana to say her idea, but she like doesn't want to say anything. And it was something about they mentioned it earlier. It was something about like the kick radius and just something that could have been done like, so I feel like there's going to be a point where she gets like a promotion or something, right? Eventually her good ideas are going to have to come into use.
Yeah, it feels like tester is like a very low, like intern type level job that you try to build up from.
Because you have to know the games well enough to be able to detect bugs in them. But I thought it was just one of those, as a viewer, it was frustrating because here she is with an open floor. We know she has good ideas and has an opportunity to say them, but now she's like shy and doesn't want to say anything. So
I think she's just happy to be there. That's her whole
she loves
thing.
the job.
She's
She
a
says
fan
that
of the
earlier.
game.
yeah, she loves it. This is the best job she's ever had. She's just playing video games and hanging out all day. Like, she loves it.
I don't think this job exists in like any other industry either, right? Like where you just give opinions on the things that you really like. Like it's a
it
full-on
has to be
job.
more.
It's not
than
really that. It's you're finding bugs in the game. So I've heard in the past that like being a video game tester makes you hate video games because you don't get to just enjoy the game, and you're not like, hey, I'm playing the game for fun. You gotta like run into every wall, move to everything, find these errors that these coders miss,
You're
and it's just
jumping in every
ruins the
possible
game,
space. Yeah, I can
So
see.
you can't get stuck in a corner somewhere, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And now, during all this argument, Rachel's saying how she thought that the idea of the whore was kind of weird, and Longbottom is trying to defend it, and it's like, what do you even do? It's like, I'm the head writer. She's like, you're like 80. And that's when Ian's like defending him, saying that he has the Nebula Award, but it's like, yeah, that's from 1973. And it was mentioned like, you met him at a state fair when he was selling rotisserie chickens, and he was like, also award winning.
That line
That was
also
my
killed
favorite
me.
line.
Yeah.
The dual threat.
Also award winning.
And while this is going on, we get back to that whole thing about if we're fixing the shovel, then there's going to be a chance that we're going to have to delay the game. David's like, nope, he already promised me. Like, Ian said, there's no way that he's going to ask for an extension. Like, we're good. Don't worry about it. Poppy's like, well, it's Friday at 5 and we need to launch on Monday. So she's requesting like a code, like lock essentially, so they can just kind of get everything bundled up and finished. But Ian's like begging for more time. And now that's when he does finally say to David, like, I am asking you for more time. As a matter of fact, it's like, you promised. He's like, well, I lied. And it's funny because, again, this whole thing's over a shovel. This whole episode is based around the idea of adding a shovel to this game. But in a way that's kind of good, right? Because in the idea of this video game world and all the things that can come with it, if you can make a whole episode out of something that minute, then it kind of gives you longevity because
the writing is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you're only tackling big issues,
there's so many like subplots too. You know, like you have the HR lady becoming the, you know, de facto therapist. You have the two testers, one of them has a crush on the other one. And then you have like the main story, and there's David who is just, you know, being shat on all day. Then you have the assistant who is supposed to be his assistant, but now there's just so much going on. And when you explain it, you're like, wow, that's a lot. But they do it so it's like seamless.
Yeah. It's really impressive to weave it all through in 1/2 hour.
There's a lot going on in this episode, but yeah, not in a way that's overwhelming, I would think. And during this argument again, we're back into that whole back and forth where David's caught in between Ian and Poppy, and it's you know, you have to make your decision. Are we going to lock the code or are we not going to lock the code? Because we need to get this game out. And now he has to make a decision as like the executive producer of this game. Do I want to get it out on time, or am I going to give Ian, the guy who's kind of like really in charge, the opportunity to make the game the way he wants to? And while they're going back and forth, forcing him to make the decision, he finally yells out that he's siding with Mom, because the therapy part of it's coming out. And by that he meant Poppy, and he said, we're locking it, that's it, everybody go home, code's locked. You know, when she says, you made the right decision, David, you did a good thing, he goes, thanks, Mom. Poppy.
I love this scene too, because this is the best part. I think Joe's best line of the whole episode. Poppy calls Ian a dick, and then Joe just snaps and goes, you're a dick, like super deep and guttural. Fucking like, it's just so out of nowhere. It's so fucking good. I think she's the best character of this whole show. I like can't wait to see where she keeps going.
And from this scene here, we get to like after hours. We get a little bit of a time lapse. And now we see that everything's closed. You know, the office is done for the night, but Ian's sitting there on the computer and he's trying to like do all this coding stuff himself. And he's like struggling to make it, you know, the way he wants it to. And Poppy enters from the elevator while this is going on. And she's trying to find out what's going on and what he's doing. And because she got like an alert that someone was fucking around with her code, basically. They get into this dialogue with one another where it's like, she's telling him, I just wanted one thing in the game that felt like it was mine. And it was just a shovel. And he's like, it's not just that. And he's like, the whole game is yours. He's like, you do all of it. And her argument back to him is like, it's not my game, it's your game. I'm just the one who like makes it. I really liked kind of this whole thing because they have a really nice moment with each other. Because he's explaining like, listen, like, you are the artist. You're the one making the game. Like, it's just, I'm just the one behind you telling you what to make. But this is all yours. It's not like you need the shovel. And he feels really adamant that I can't explain why. I just know that this shovel could be something huge. And you have to just trust me. The way it works out in that conversation, she's kind of trying to reciprocate the same thing with, when he says that, she gives him basically what needs to happen with this shovel to make it a proper weapon. And she's saying like, oh, if we boost the initial velocity and we do this, like, that's going to help. And he's like, that will make it cooler. And she's like, yeah. And like, I don't know how, and then he just cuts her off and like walks off. So she was trying to give him that moment back. Like, and her speech the way he ended his speech. And she's like, you never let me finish. Like, I was going to do the I just do thing that you did. And I really like that.
I love too at like the beginning when she's explaining, it's like, I'm just the paintbrush. He's even interrupting there and critiquing her like analogies.
Yeah, he's like, your analogy
He's
is
like
flawed.
supporting the analogy, but he won't let it be.
Well, when it started, because she goes like, it's like you're this brilliant painter. And he goes, yes. Yeah, so now they kind of have this resolve. She's kind of caving in, but in a way that she feels comfortable with, because I think she needed the reassurance that this game isn't, it's not just all him. She does have more to do with it than she realizes. Just because he's instructing it, none of it would be there without her. And I think she just needed to hear him say that to feel like she's more involved in this process.
And I think this was a great button on like that part of the episode.
And their relationship.
Yeah.
Right.
But I also like that, like, it was a very easy fix to make the shovel effective, and she knew it the entire time. She just didn't want to do it either.
Yeah, she wanted the win, basically.
Yeah.
And from there, we get the little graphic for a Pooty Shoe review. We see him there, and he's doing his, like, live stream. It's like, all right, guys, it's time for the Ravens Banquet, review. It finally dropped this morning. And he does give a little backstory that this game is something that he's been obsessed with from, like, day one, like, the original Mythic Quest, And during the review, you cut to the office, and the entire office is, like, standing in the main area, like, looking up at monitors, watching this.
Yeah, it's very serious.
Like they're watching like a verdict for a trial. Like everyone's on pins and needles to see what he says about this.
It looks like Times Square when everyone stopped to watch the finale of Seinfeld on the giant screen. It's like that level of.
And he's going to give it its actual review, but he's like, but first, and it, we think he's about to say it, but he goes into that little like commercial where for like deodorant, that's when he mentions that's how he pays for his parents' mortgage.
Rager body spray.
Rager, smell the rage. Like, that's a watching like one of them like, come on, you little piece of shit, like, come on.
I never noticed because I remember looking for it, but do they still sell like Axe body spray? Like, can you just go to like a Walgreens and buy Axe body spray?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, I say next time we're all together, and the first time we ever record an episode all together.
I'm
in the same
not wearing
room.
Axe.
No, I'm buying us 5 cans of Axe, different flavors, and we're all gonna have to just cover ourselves in them and see how long we can handle the room.
It sounds
It's
terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not supposed to be fun or smell good.
I want to ruin the one time we're all going to be together.
I know, because by then we're all going to be like 70 anyways, and like who knows how much time we have left. It could be the last time.
Well, at that point, we won't be able to smell, so it'll be fine.
So he goes over this review. The approach to it, what he's saying, he's like, my love for Mythic Quest runs deep. So the statement that I'm about to lay down is really, really heavy. He goes, Raven's Banquet is a straight up masterpiece. Now, I'll say this. I wasn't sure where he was going to go. Like, even like, I felt because he was saying it that way, it was going to end up being positive because, they're trying to bait and switch you. But, yeah, I thought it was interesting because depending on what this kid said, it was going to like lay out how the whole season went.
Right.
Because if he gave it a bad review, then the whole thing would have been fixing it. And I kind of, it was fun that obviously it's weird because it's like some young streamer, but this was like, this reveal was going to set up the whole season.
It kind of would have been funnier if he didn't like it, and after all that, they blamed Poppy.
Yeah, like in a Choose Your Own Adventure, that episode would also be very funny.
And also, when he finally says that it's a masterpiece, the office is reacting like it was a successful space launch. Like those guys all worked for NASA. Like,
yeah, it looks like
high-fiving and screaming. And he says that the thing he loves most is the shovel. And there's a point where you do see like that he got to draw the dick with the shovel.
Yep.
Like when you see the gameplay. So they did get away from that idea of putting the limiter.
They allowed it.
There are so many fun things in this too. Where, like, there's in the next scene coming up here where you see F. Murray Abraham again. Like, there's just a quiet throwaway line a few minutes earlier where they're like, he drinks too much, and I think he lives here. And he just like comes out of the broom closet with his hair all tousled. Like, this show just puts so many things out there that just come back, and it's fucking masterfully written.
Here we're getting the final review from this kid. He gives the game a rating of, it was mentioned earlier, 4 B-holes.
Yep.
And you see like the little graphic of 4 little, they don't look like buttholes. It look kind of like poop splatters.
Oh, it's like a cat's butt, like the X thing.
The asterisk.
Yeah, that's it.
I don't have a cat to look into its butthole. So
As a
You're
person who's
the
owned
man.
cats his entire life, accurate. Fur is accurate. And they love showing you their buttholes.
And again,
Maybe
it's
they've
fun
never
to
had a cat, we'll test.
it was fun to watch a bunch of adults now cheering and reacting to being awarded 4 buttholes.
It's so ridiculous, but they take it so seriously.
Gordo would have loved that.
Yeah.
I know. Again, it was just the wrong episode for him to not be around for.
Now, a quick question for Ferg and Nick before we finish this up. What does an expansion pack like this usually cost? Like, what is the cost associated with, like, downloading this?
It depends, honestly,
Yeah.
per game. It could be $100, could be $120. I would say, like, so it's weird. They, like, package these things differently. So, like, you could buy just the game, right? $60. But then there's going to be all this expansion stuff off of this expansion that you could get for, if you bought it all now, for $120. But if you bought it as you went along, it would be, $108. Like, they get
they
you
find
coming
ways to
and
get
going
you.
lately, yeah.
But or at least $100 probably.
Yeah, I'd say that's a good base between 60 and 100.
It's basically buying a whole new game. It's like you know what I mean?
Right? Yeah.
So I get it. Games are so expensive now. But yeah, and we see Rachel and Dana watching on, and it's just another, like, it's the last time we see them in this episode, and they're talking about the butthole thing and how it's the rating system, and Dana's explaining to Rachel that anything above 2 is exceptional. Because I'll say this, when he first said 4, I thought it was probably out of 5 or something. So, because everyone was cheering really heavy. But I guess anything over 2 in general is just really good. So a 4 was...
Which is a weird rating system for metrics. Like, I don't know why over 2 is good.
We go to Longbottom, as you said earlier, Joe. There was a mention earlier that the thought that he might be living there, and we see him walk out of this closet, like, not fully ready for work or anything, but because everyone's in the office cheering, I assume the review came at, like, non-typical hours, so everyone just made it a point to be there for it. So now he's running up and trying to figure out what's going on. It's like, what's up? It's like, oh, we got 4 buttholes. He's like, dear God, I took a lover in Guam once. She had 3, but 4, that's the dream.
That's the dream.
Which is, it's Frontier with the only thing you could say, which is just like questioning, like, what? They cut away from it
his
right away.
response to that was the what was perfect. Yeah.
Seeing the him come out of the closet like that too, and the fact that he was like living there, that did give me like the Creed vibes of like the finale of The Office.
I thought the same thing. Yeah, he's the Creed character for sure.
That's a good comparison for sure. Yeah.
While everyone's celebrating, Brad's saying to Poppy like, "Hey, like the expansion's a hit, and congrats to you or Ian, whichever one of you won." And he's like, "I can't keep track anymore." And she's like, "Both of us won. Like this is just like good news in general." And as she's saying that, now Ian gets up and addresses everyone because his office is like it steps above everyone else. So
It's
like
elevated.
Yeah, he kind of has almost like a pedestal to speak on at all times when he's coming out of his door. And he's talking to everyone and saying, we've done it again. And there was someone that he needs to thank. And, his muse really, his partner. He's like, if you've seen her around the office these last few days, a little worse for the wear, but I can tell you I never lost faith in her. Calls her up there, and then Brad's like, get up there. And she knows him so well. He's like, he's not talking about me. He's talking about the shovel. And then you hear him go, the shovel. And then someone brings the shovel up. And I did like that. I like that. During
Joe
that
brings
whole...
the shovel. She like
Yeah,
runs
Joe
it up.
comes
That's-
running with
Joe,
it. Yeah.
I like the idea of during that, we're made to think he's talking about her. Although, again, it's one of those typical TV show things. You knew it wouldn't have been her just because the way that these shows work. But I like that she wasn't fooled either. She knew the whole time that he was talking about the shovel because, as we said before, they just know each other so well.
Right. Yep.
And it pretty much ends on that. He gets the shovel, and then everyone's just chanting his name. And, because he said, like, to the shovel, to Mythic Quest. And everyone's just chanting I-N. And that was the conclusion of the episode.
I think that's the perfect way to end it too, right? Like you don't want a character like that to be redeemed to end it. You want him to be the exact same person, having learned nothing.
Right.
So you can go into the next episode following the same.
Yeah, we see enough of him where we can see the humanity there. And that but he needs to stay flawed. So that was a good way to, like you said, he didn't really learn enough, at least in that moment.
Still a lot of work to be done.
If this was a movie, you could have that happen. But when you're trying to do episode, you have to have it so he like slowly redeems and loses it every time.
So yeah, like I said, that was the conclusion of the episode, and I don't know much else about the show. There's not a lot of info because I just think like when they're newer shows, there's just not a lot of extra info on them yet. Like they're just, there's not much there.
In progress, yeah.
But I don't know if there's anything else you guys wanted to remark on about the show or the gaming world in general or how it's portrayed, but
Well, we covered it pretty well throughout the episode, I think.
I'll ask you guys real quick now before we close out. We talked about the games as a kid. To those of you who are still actively playing games, like what are the types of games you guys like to play these days?
I was just playing a game when Joe came on called Battle Bit. That's a lot of fun. It's just a first-person shooter with like Minecraft-style graphics, so you can do a lot more. But I play all the common games. I know Ferg kind of delves into the RPGs more. Not like MMO, but just like a typical RPG. I've never had the patience for those games. I've always had the proclivity to play the like the fast-paced blow-up first-person shooters and stuff that everybody else seems to play. Not that nobody plays those RPGs. Tons of people play them. It's just not my thing.
Yeah, like Nick hit on the head. I like a good RPG. I also like survival horror games. Just recently bought the new Resident Evil 4 remake, so I'm going to dive into that real soon.
I suck at video games. I never really played a lot of them, which is probably why I suck at them, but
Come on, man. You kill it at Arkanoid.
Arkanoid was like, I was going to bring that up when we were talking about childhood games. I loved Arkanoid. I played so much of it as a kid. And like modern day stuff, like I don't really, like I said, I'll play like a wrestling game when they come out. But those were always ones that I had more fun playing like alongside of friends more than just playing story modes on my own. And that's kind of like the only time I really like playing games in general is just when it's a social thing with other people. But and then like Madden got just tricky. Like now there's just people who are just experts at it.
Yeah, that's just not fun anymore.
So like if you're not playing a friend of yours and you go online and playing and everybody's a fucking expert, it's just not fun anymore. So like I just don't do it.
I don't play anything new now. I would love to get my PS2 set up though, because I did really enjoy a lot of those games. And I'm sure there were newer ones too. Like I'm sure if I liked the Medal of Honor or Call of Duty or whatever, there's probably a newer one that I'd like too. But I'm also at a point where I'm like, I'm not going to buy a $600 gaming system to play.
Joe, you can hook that up. It's 2 wires. It's one to the TV and one to the wall.
Till the sweat drips down your ball.
You know, when I got my laptop, you know, one of the first things I did was I bought a couple like USB controllers, like one N64 one and an NES one, and I got a couple emulators. And I was like, oh, I'm going to play all these video games now. Like, I have all the old Nintendo games. And I did that for, like, a few days. And then I just don't play a lot of games. And I don't know. I don't know why I can't, like, bring myself to, like, just sit and enjoy them. But my brain's always in 50 places at once. And I have zero time. So
I play a lot lately, a lot of reverse Tetris, which is very fun.
Oh.
Pieces go up.
Yeah, you go up and try to break so you don't hit the top. That sounds stupid, but that's like what I do when I'm like, I have 10 minutes between whatever, or like I'll do it if I'm on like the exercise bike in the morning, so I'm not like just sweating, staring at the wall.
I was a big Tetris guy, but now I'm like, because I'm just playing on my phone, I'm just Candy Crush, which, and I guess it's the same, not the same game, but like same mindset, right? People who like one game
it's based on Bejeweled, right? Candy Crush, it's that. Yeah,
you're matching lines and stuff like that. But yeah, I play a lot of that. And that's basically the only video game, if you want to call it a video game, that I play these days. But yeah, might as well get into the green light or cancel. Obviously, without Gordo here, we're not going to have a full review, but you can go to S1E1 Pod on Instagram, and we will have a graphic up later in the week. And that will include his score, but the 4 of us will go, and we'll see where it is. I think I know where it's going anyways, but for the sake of argument, I'll go in the order I see you guys. Nick, you're first.
Yeah, this is easy green light. I'd say in the past 5 years of TV shows, this might be my favorite. It's like, I don't know, it's really invigorating. It's not a sitcom. Okay, let's get that we've talked about. It's not a sitcom. It's just a straight comedy. But it's just so much, it has so much potential. Even I've watched this, but I felt the same way. I didn't watch the pilot for the first time that long ago, within the past couple months. But I remember watching it the first time and just like dying to keep going and see where this goes. There's, like I said, there's a lot of potential for story, for where the cast members are going. So yeah, definitely a big green light. I will say this though, I'm pretty sure Gordo's gonna cancel this because it just seems like one of those shows that he would cancel and he wouldn't have a good reason as to why, besides the fact that it wasn't a sitcom and that he can't get over. But I'm calling it now. I think Gordo's going to cancel. But yes, big green light for me. I love this show. Great cast, great writing. Can't beat it.
Ferg.
Yeah, like I said, I watched this all the way through, and then I just watched it again for this. And even though I already watched it all the way through, it killed me not to go on to the next episode. So, I mean, that's a green light for me. It's a pretty big ensemble cast, and we've gone over this in the past, but that's a lot of people to meet at once, and I wasn't overwhelmed. You got an idea of who everyone was, and there was still so much to go on. They gave you the successful launch at the end. It leaves you wanting more to see what they do next. So, easy green light.
Joe.
Yeah, I don't have much to say that Ferg and Nick didn't say. The one thing I will say is I think it's sad and kind of unfair for this show, and a weird indictment that like there are so many different places to watch shows now, that something that has this good of acting, writing, like everything, that it's so funny, a bunch of us hadn't even heard of, and we spend too much of our lives dissecting TV shows, right? Like, I think that's maybe Apple has the most money in the entire world, and when they want to do things streamlined, they can. Like I said, I spent an hour in the Apple store the other day getting a new phone. When you get into the cogs of that machine, they are better than almost any company at just like making things go and work. And for every Apple commercial I see on TV for anything else, I never see one for any show on that platform. And I just think that's really unfair to this show that is so funny, that the writing was so good on, that everybody was so great on. And like, good for them for giving it more seasons, but maybe this will help more people who didn't know what to find it. Maybe we're the outliers, but I guess I'm going to have to find a way to get Apple TV Plus now, because this was so enjoyable, and it's a green light for me.
Yeah, and as you say that, before I even get in mind, I one thing I did read too, going over everything, was they greenlit a second season before the pilot even aired, which I thought was a really interesting move. So I don't know if they didn't have a lot in development. Like, I don't know the infrastructure for Apple TV Plus, but I thought it was really interesting for them to do such a thing. But yeah, as far as my rating goes, I didn't know what to expect with the show, honestly. I just knew it was about like gaming, and I was a little iffy on that, as where I'm not a big video game person. The tie-ins to the creators being the guys from Always Sunny and everything else, and as we mentioned earlier, has a big Silicon Valley vibe, and that's a show that I very much enjoyed. So for all those reasons and everything else that happened within it, I thought that show was pretty fun. So I'm going to give it a green light also. And Nick, I'm glad you mentioned it, because I thought the same thing. I can very much see this being a show that Gordo just randomly decides to cancel, provided that he actually watches it.
I was just going to say, though, but if he watches it is the big key here.
Yeah. But yeah, in any event, that will be on S1E1 Pod on Instagram. We'll have the graphic up later in the week, so go ahead and check that out. And as far as we go, his vote doesn't really matter, because we already have 4 out of 4. So congratulations to, I was going to say to Silicon Valley. Congratulations to Mythic Quest. You do get the green light from us. Thank you to everyone who listened to this episode. Again, make sure you follow us, S1E1 Pod. Shoot us a message, talk to us. Again, I want to know what kind of shows you want us to cover, but I also not like knowing who you guys are, how you found us, and, you know, just kind of what you like about the show, so we can continue to do things you like to hear. But in any event, that's all the time we have for this week. We'll catch you again next week with another new episode. Until then, thank you. Goodbye.
Hootie out.
I think we got the best pootie shooties.